Pakistan's latest GDP figures offer a picture of modest recovery. A projected growth rate of 3.7% for the current fiscal falls short of the government's original 4% target. And this is slightly less than even the lower bound of the State Bank's projected range of 3.75–4.75%, but it is still an improvement over the previous year's 3.8% expansion. Thankfully, the SBP anticipates growth, albeit tepid, and during much of next year in case energy prices stay elevated and the Gulf crisis lingers. That said, the numbers show that the economy continues its struggle to break out of the low growth trap, and structural issues are constraining long-term, faster growth prospects without overheating the economy. In this context, even modest growth is welcome after 4 years of economic instability and external financing crises and inflationary shocks, and despite oil price hikes triggered by the Gulf conflict. And never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead, AS, a nuclear state and the sole arbiter of global peace trying to avoid World War III, we need to pay equal attention to the precarious situation of the people of Pakistan, especially the most vulnerable, poor women and children. Pakistan's global optics are great today and the government deserves kudos, but the real development has to be inside out.
That. With the war in the Middle East, Karachi's strategic importance has once again come to the fore. Recent data shared by the Karachi Port Trust revealed that the Karachi port handled at least 8,313 containers in March 2026, that exceeding the total volume handled in 2025. While Karachi's location and its 2 deep water ports have often underscored its immense potential, successive governments have failed to transform it into a modern metropolis. That. Consider the Red Line BRT project. Slated to be completed in 2022, the project's delay epitomizes the city's abysmal governance. Writing for these pages, former Provincial Minister Yunus Daga bemoaned that since 2012, that the federal government completed approximately 90 kilometers of BRT length, Punjab around 95 kilometers, with additional projects of 78 kilometers underway, KP 27 kilometers, while Sindh has completed only 3.9 kilometers in the past 14 years. That. Hence the rate of implementation of the Karachi Transportation Improvement Project since 2012 by the Sindh government has been 0.28 kilometers per year. At this rate, it will take around 535 years to complete the remaining 150 kilometers of K-Type P, that which was to be completed in 2030. That. Demonstrators led by mining groups and rural unions have clashed with law enforcement in Bolivia as tensions simmer over the country's economic crisis, the worst in decades. On Thursday, small explosions were heard in the midst of the protest in La Paz, credited to miners setting off small sticks of dynamite. Some protesters were reported as attempting to breach the presidential palace. That. Lawyers for OpenAI and Elon Musk began closing arguments in a landmark trial that could impact the future of the ChatGPT maker. On Thursday, each side presented a concluding statement to jurors who will decide whether OpenAI and its leaders profited from a venture that was meant to be a charity.
And Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has suggested that Havana would accept humanitarian aid from the United States if it is delivered in accordance with internationally recognized practices. But he added that if the goal were truly to relieve the suffering of the Cuban people, the US would do better to lift its trade embargo on the island. And 9 California jurors are now deliberating over the future of OpenAI, the world-leading artificial intelligence lab, while the trial exploring Elon Musk's case against OpenAI's other co-founders and Microsoft has covered territory ranging from the breakup of the founders in 2018 to Altman's firing and rehiring in 2023. The jurors will be considering a set of fairly narrow questions. And Elon Musk's newly rebranded SpaceX AI is reportedly losing top talent, with more than 50 researchers and engineers departing since February, according to the information. The exits include key leaders across coding, world models, and Grok Voice. Rivals like Meta and Thinking Machine Labs are reportedly scooping up former staff, with the company's core pre-training team dwindling to just a handful of people. Since February, And at least 11 XAI employees have defected to Meta, according to the Information's report. At least 7 have left to join Mira Murati's Thinking Machine Labs. And TechCrunch has previously reported on 11 of the XAI departures announced directly after the merger, including 2 co-founders.
That. CIA Director John Ratcliffe led a U.S. delegation to Havana to meet with Cuban government officials on Thursday as the island deals with a collapse of its energy sector amid rising tensions with the U.S., according to the Cuban government. That, following the request submitted by the U.S. government that a delegation presided over by the CIA Director John Ratcliffe be received in Havana, that the Revolutionary Directorate approved the realization of this visit and the meeting with its counterpart from the Ministry of the Interior. The statement read that Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has pledged to reform the Palestinian Authority at a Fatah Party conference in the occupied West Bank, pledging to hold long-delayed presidential and parliamentary elections. Fatah kicked off the 3-day 8th General Conference in Ramallah on Thursday to elect a new Central Committee, its highest leadership body, for the first time in 10 years as it faces existential challenges in the wake of Israel's genocidal war on Gaza.
And Mike Banks has resigned as the head of the United States Border Patrol in the latest turnover to hit President Donald Trump's immigration enforcement operations. On Thursday, Banks broke the announcement to Fox News, saying it's just time for him to leave. He also took credit for a decline in border crossings since Trump took office for a second term. And the Cerebras Systems IPO was a smash hit on Thursday, generating billions major investors. Among the big winners is major shareholder Benchmark, which owns 9.5% of the company. One of the firm's general partners, Eric Vishria, has been a Cerebras board member since 2016, the year the AI chipmaker was founded, having co-led its $25 million Series A round. And Lovable, the AI-powered app-building platform, has backed a Danish hardware startup, Atech, that wants to introduce vibe coding to the process of creating hardware. Lovable was part of an $800 and our pre-seed round that also included a 16Z Scout Fund, Sequoia Scout Fund, and Nordic Makers. In a chat with TechCrunch, Atech's head of customer experience, Gustav Hugod, said the platform's workings are quite simple. And users buy a starter hardware kit for whatever they are trying to build from Atech's site. Then they open a tab at the site, talk to an AI chatbot, describe the hardware concept they're trying to build, and the AI tool generates code that helps them build a working prototype. Hugod said the company's user base is pretty broad right now, from 4-year-olds building cars to a hydrogen synthesis plant that needs precise voltage sensing. And typically, building any type of hardware prototype requires decades of experience or finding pricey but talented engineers. But Hugod said that as the accessibility gap of software has collapsed, and so will the difficulty of building in the hardware space. Hardware in a democratized world has to be available to everyone, he said. The new capital will be used for research and development, marketing and hiring.
That Codex is going mobile. The coding tool, which OpenAI launched approximately a year ago, has now been integrated into the ChatGPT app, allowing users to monitor and manage their development workflows remotely. The new function allows users to see their Codex live environments in any devices where it is running. The company announced the changes Thursday. The update, which is currently in preview, is now available to all plans on iOS and Android.
And Tehran. Iran is looking at ways of providing limited connectivity to approved individuals and entities amid a continued state-imposed internet shutdown, and with a tiered access model currently being offered that experts have said still undermines the digital rights of Iranians. And President Masoud Pezeshkian on Wednesday announced the creation of a new entity to review internet coverage in the country, named the Specialized Headquarters for Organizing and Guiding Iran's cyberspace, and with First Vice President Mohammad Reza Aref, a relative moderate, appointed as its head. And as Israeli attacks in Lebanon continue despite a ceasefire, the United States is hosting the third round of talks between Lebanese and Israeli officials. Hezbollah opposes the meeting in Washington. And US President Donald Trump returns to Beijing after 9 years to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. The trade war, conflict in Iran, and rising fears over Taiwan shape the talks. With global tensions mounting, can the two leaders find common ground, or will rivalry push the world further into crisis? In this episode, and France coach Didier Deschamps has assembled a World Cup squad with formidable attacking talent led by Kylian Mbappe, while rewarding goalkeeper Robin Risser following his breakthrough season with a call-up for the Showpiece tournament. Deschamps, who guided France to World Cup glory in 2018 and will leave after this tournament, included few surprises in his announcement of the 26-man squad on Thursday. And OpenAI is so frustrated with Apple over a ChatGPT integration that failed to deliver the subscribers and prominence it expected that the company is now actively exploring legal action against the iPhone maker, Bloomberg News reported Thursday. And, citing people familiar with the matter, according to Bloomberg, OpenAI has enlisted an outside law firm to work through its options, and which could include sending Apple a formal breach of contract notice without necessarily escalating to a full lawsuit, at least not immediately. And any legal move would likely wait until after the conclusion of OpenAI's ongoing trial with Elon Musk. And Richard Socher has been a major figure in AI for some time, best known for founding the early chatbot startup U.com, and before that, his work on Imaginet. And he's joining the current generation of research-focused AI startups with Recursive Superintelligence, a San Francisco-based startup that came out of stealth on Wednesday with $650 million in funding. And Socher is joined in the new venture by a cohort of prominent AI researchers, including Peter Norvig and Cresta co-founder Tim Shih. Together, they're working to create a recursively self-improving AI model, and one that can autonomously identify its own weaknesses and redesign itself to fix them without human involvement, a long-held holy grail of contemporary AI research. And Yuri Veltman was tense. He's the national field director for Standing Together, an organization of Jewish and Palestinian peace activists, and who had gathered to resist the tens of thousands of far-right Jewish marchers heading for occupied East Jerusalem's Old City. He had reason to be worried. Jerusalem Day, and marked by Jewish Israelis every year to celebrate the 1967 capture and subsequent illegal occupation of the city, and has become an opportunity for thousands to be bussed in from across Israel and the occupied West Bank to participate in the Flag March, where they maraud through the Old City and attack Palestinians as well as Jewish peace activists. And Palestinians from outside the Old City were not allowed in by police. And more than 40% of Sudan's population is facing acute hunger, according to a report by a global hunger monitor, the 3-year civil war having created one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Nearly 19.5 million Sudanese people are facing such dire circumstances, the United Nations-backed Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, IPC, said on Thursday. And the administration of United States President Donald Trump has pledged an extra $1.8 billion in humanitarian funding to the United Nations, but the amount announced on Thursday remains far short of past US commitments to humanitarian aid, which totaled as high as $17 billion in fiscal year 2022. And on Friday, Jerome Powell's term as chair of the United States Federal Reserve Board of Governors will come to a close after months of tension between the White House and the central bank, and as US President Donald Trump pushes for more aggressive interest rate cuts, Powell's term ends on May 15, and he will be succeeded by Trump appointee Kevin Warsh, who served on the central bank's Board of Governors from 2006 to 2011. And Powell will continue on the board as a governor after stepping down as chair.
That Israeli ultranationalists marching through Jerusalem's Old City chanted death to Arabs, and may your villages burn during the annual Jerusalem Day parade. As many Palestinian residents stayed indoors and shuttered their shops, tens of thousands of Israelis, many of them teenagers and young adults, take part each year in the march, which Israeli authorities say celebrates the reunification of Jerusalem after Israel captured East Jerusalem during the 1967 war. That short-form video is a format that's built for mobile. These vertically oriented videos are designed to fit the shape of a smartphone. But according to YouTube, this kind of content has become quite popular on the big screen. It seems counterintuitive, but the data is hard to argue against. YouTube viewers watch over 2 billion hours of YouTube Shorts, the platform's clips that run up to 3 minutes on TVs each month. The living room is YouTube's fastest growing screen, and the Shorts experience is further helping connect viewers with the world's most active creator community from the comfort of their couch, said Kurt Wilms, YouTube's Senior Director of Product Management for YouTube on TV. We've found that audiences increasingly want to watch their favorite content on the biggest screen at home, whether it's long-form content, a podcast, or a short. Silicon Valley's token maxing error now has its own hardware. A new open-source project brings your Claude Code utilization stats into a tiny desktop dashboard, allowing AI power users to keep an eye on their usage. Sure, you can track Claude Code usage directly in the terminal using commands or other external tools and apps, but that's not as fun as seeing a pixel art version of the Claude sprite dance on a screen before showing at-a-glance token usage info, is it?
And Noor Airways has issued a clarification statement rejecting recent reports regarding the airline's leadership as it continues preparations to enter Pakistan's aviation market. In an official statement shared by the airline, Noor Airways said reports circulating about its leadership were inaccurate. The company stated that the airline was being developed and managed by experienced commercial aviation and airline industry professionals.
Before demanding $1 billion and a wife from Turkey in April 2026, Uganda's pro-Israel army chief Muhoozi Kainerugaba made a series of social media posts in 2022, wishing to marry Italy's current Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. French newspaper Le Monde reported at the time. In earlier widely reported remarks, Kainerugaba suggested offering 100 Anko cows to Italy in exchange for marrying Meloni, and made additional statements that included references to taking military action toward Rome if his demand wasn't met.